The Berlin State Library on the famous street called Unter den Linden, right in the middle of the city. It was Europe's largest building site for a cultural facility. Old has become new, largely unnoticed by the public. The books are returning, and Germany's largest academic library is open again, to everyone. People can come to read, do research, and to dream. It's a journey through time, through a building full of surprises. The Prussian Grande Dame, meticulously restored over a period of several years, is showing herself in all her beauty again. From the outside, only a fraction of the changes that have been undertaken on the inside can be imagined. Building work during business as usual. That means noise, dirt and detours. Friendly words, special books, robust nerves are a must. And at least the visitors are quiet. Why do several hundred people come to a building site every day to study?
You're a little bit away from it all, and that's a good thing. Otherwise, you could work at home. I could request books through interlibrary loans, but I like it here because you're quite secluded here.
Abgeschiedenheit.
I entered a building that had aspects dating both from imperial times and from communist East Germany. I was working on a Faust opera that was largely composed in the First World War, so I thought intensively about German identity while in this building. It was like a trip through the looking glass.
(1992). The two state libraries in Berlin, West and East, are being reunited. One state library in two buildings. A new era is beginning for the original building on Berlin's Unter den Linden. Nothing's staying untouched. In two construction phases, one of Berlin's biggest buildings will be renovated from the ground up and adapted to the original of 1914. Checking, restoring, demolishing, rebuilding. And a new big reading room will dominate the centre again, where history ripped the deepest wound in the building. The structure will have to be partially gutted for this beautification. History is being uncovered. The Electoral Library was first opened in 1661 on the banks of the River Spree in a part of town then called Köln, and was housed in a wing of the Berlin City Palace. But this location soon became too small. A proper library was needed. In 1780, 150,000 volumes moved to a new building on Opernplatz. 100 years later, the library was once again bursting at the seams. The music collection, the map collection, the manuscript department, space was running out. At the turn of the 20th century, Berlin had become the academic centre of Europe. Culture and research boomed. Kaiser Wilhelm II commissioned his favourite architect, Ernst von Ihne, to build a library of global standing. The new Palace of the Books was built on Unter den Linden in the heart of the city. After an 11-year construction period, the doors were finally opened in 1914 with much pomp and circumstance. Berlin's society was amazed. The building was monumental. The dead hand of display, the critics complained. And the books, they were merely secondary here. Ernst von Ihne had incorporated the latest technology. The shelving system developed by Robert Lippmann supported the massive structure like a skeleton, running through it from the 7th to the 13th floor. There was room for 3 million volumes. Lippmann's shelving system has withstood everything. The 13 floors of stacks have survived air raids and the ravages of time unscathed. Newly renovated, they provide room for the coming generations of books. The domed reading room. Ernst von Ihne wanted the State Library to be a cathedral of scholarship. Massive in its proportions and reflecting the prestige of its nation, like the national libraries in Paris, London and Washington. Studying in a temple of power. A lot of Prussian neo-Baroque and, behind-the-scenes, high-tech. Book orders rush through the extensive building via pneumatic mail chutes. The books were delivered to readers via conveyor belts.
The building on Unter den Linden has always been a bit of a construction site. When it was inaugurated in 1914, it was still incomplete. Work continued on some of the annexes and the upper stories until well into the 30s. It was only in 1936 that a book conveyor was installed in the cellar of the domed reading room. Then the war came and it suffered great damage. After that, it was restored. The roofs were fixed, the facade was fixed, and it started operating again. But of course, construction continued in the 50s and 60s, and the interior was improved too.
Nevertheless, it's an island of tranquility. The noise and bustle of Berlin stays outside. The Prussian State Library is a place of concentration, a place for informal encounters. (1945). The Prussian library was destroyed by bombs. Overnight, books had to be rescued and repaired. A new beginning was necessary. The domed reading room had sustained the most damage. It remained a ruin for more than 30 years.
It's 12 o'clock. The Director of Operations has ordered the Chief Blaster to perform the detonation. Everyone involved is feeling the heat now. The collapse of the steel construction could clearly be seen amidst the flames and huge clouds of smoke.
For a long time, there was a huge hole in the middle of the library where the domed reading room had once been. The biggest problem was an acute lack of space. 4 book towers, like industrial storage facilities, were built in place of the domed room in the mid-80s. No air conditioning and an eyesore, but room for 2.4 million volumes. The architectural history is everywhere. The old Prussia of the Kaisers, coupled with modern renovations and new buildings. The pompous next to clinical. The generously proportioned next to the fragmented. The architecture resembles growth rings that reveal the fertile as well as the lean periods.
Every time you come in, you discover something new. You discover far more details. At first you see the overall space. Then you gradually sense what the architects were thinking. That's a really long process.
The library floor plan, with its central axes and rooms, is to be recreated entirely in the spirit of the 1914 original. The reading rooms, added in the 60s, in the East German modernist style, have no place in the new concept. But many appreciate the intimate atmosphere. They believe these rooms are also a part of the building's history that should be preserved. a vehement debate erupted about whether the communist architecture in the State Library should stay or go, but the reading rooms disappeared anyway. It was a done deal.
These reading rooms can be romanticized, maybe by the people who worked there during the communist period. I think that's what's happening. But I didn't think their actual design was great. They paid no attention to the building's geometry. There were no windows or connections. You were really autistic in there. I don't really understand the whole discussion. It must be emotional. Or it's the claim that by removing a bit of East German design, we're questioning the entire communist East German period. I'm not really sure what the debate was all about.
What was left is the Prussian original, 170 metres long and 107 metres wide. A major construction site in the rear courtyard since 1995. The dust, the arch-enemy of books, is hard to keep under control. The noise can be kept out, but not got suppressed entirely. Opening windows? Impossible. Everyone has to suffer. Nobody really complains, but it's not pleasant. Architects call this imposition building during business as usual. A look into the new heart of the State Library. The new reading room is taking shape where the domed hall and the industrial book stacks once stood. The design by the Stuttgart-based architect H.G. Merz won the competition in 2000. Modern architecture embedded in imperial neo-Baroque, a bridge spanning 2 centuries.
It was important to me that you have light when you're reading. I prefer sitting near a window or having a nice reading lamp next to me. I think in this heavy building by von Ina, it's a bit dark. That's this late imperial element. So I think there should be a bright room in the middle where you can read by daylight.